The Spear of the Impaler oozes edginess and style in a way that makes me hate to put it away. I fell in love with this weapon when I saw it in the DLC promotional material, far before its release in June 2024. The spear is wielded by my favorite boss in the game, has incredible reach, a throwing heavy attack, and an Ash of War that is fantastic looking as it is effective. The Spear of the Impaler is a remembrance reward from defeating Mesmer. You can head around Castle Ensis and through the Church District to rush in and fight him as the first boss of the DLC once you gain access to the Land of Shadow. The moveset matches the spear's original owner well. The R1s are thrusting pierce attacks that capitalize on the range this great spear can poke from. The neutral R1s will deal pierce damage, but some light attacks will only deal standard damage, such as the rolling R1s. I found myself waiting a fraction of a second after rolling to get the better light attack animation on many occasions throughout the run. The R2 takes advantage of the new DLC weapon throwing mechanic. Tap or hold the heavy attack button, and you'll throw the spear at whatever you're looking at or locked onto. While this move does look cool, it doesn't deal great damage at range, and I didn't use the new talisman to boost thrown weapon damage. What this move is great for is doing poise damage to enemies, so you can keep the pressure on them at range. I usually carry kukris on my builds for this purpose, but I didn't need them as much in this run because of the throw attack. Mesmer's Assault is a crazy looking Ash of War. It lets you pull off the move where dozens of spears generate out of the ground to impale anyone or anything unlucky enough to be in your way. The move is long and I wouldn't recommend it in every fight, but if the move can stagger your opponent, you can be pretty confident you can execute the whole Ash of War. If you're fighting something a bit more sturdy, the first part of the move is fine, as this Ash is split into 3 parts. There's the initial swing, the triple thrust, and then the final impalement. Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength show great potency here. Golden Vow boosts our damage and damage negation. Flame Grant Me Strength boosts our physical damage and fire damage, which are the 2 types of damage on our weapon. I also did have Fire Serpent and Mesmer's Orb equipped, but I didn't use either of these much. Not because they are bad incantations, I was simply too in love with the weapon moveset. Before every fight, buff up in the order of descending duration. Start with the Flask, Golden Vow, then Flame Grant Me Strength. The weapon is a great spear, so even the fastest parts of the moveset aren't fast by Elden Ring standards. So poke with caution. Attack windows that are available to claws and rapiers are not free hits for the Spear of the Impaler. Keep poking with the neutral R1 attacks while you're at close range. If you find yourself far away from the enemy, throw it with the heavy attack. Just be mindful that the heavy attack eats up stamina, so only throw when you can afford to have no stamina or are nearly full of that green bar. Because we deal mostly fire damage, and some enemies are highly fire resistant, I used status-inducing consumables more than usual this run. Mesmer and Moog would have taken much longer to kill if it wasn't for those wonderful hefty rot pots. Before we get into talismans and stats, do let me know down in the comments what your favorite DLC remembrance weapon is. The Spear of the Impaler is certainly my choice, but there are some other cool weapons we get from bosses in the DLC. If you want to stay updated with weekly videos here at TheJerseySide, whether or not I have laryngitis as you can hear in my voice, be sure to like and subscribe. Our talisman setup will be very similar to last week if you saw the Sacred Relic Sword video. We have the Shard of Alexander, for 15% more damage with the Ash of War, the Fire Scorpion Charm, for 12% more fire damage, at the cost of 10% less physical damage negation, but we make up for that with the Dragon Crest Great Shield. That gives us 20% physical damage negation. Finally, I used the Two-Handed Sword Talisman, for 15% more damage with those wonderful pokes. In a few fights against fire-resistant bosses, or where I wanted a more defensive build, I switched out the Fire Scorpion Charm for the Two-Headed Turtle Talisman. This gave the build a boost to stamina regen, and better physical damage negation. The tier setup included the Flame Shroud and Crack tier, for 20% more fire damage. The second slot either held the Bloodsuck and Crack tier, or the Open Line Hard tier. Decide between the two if you want to play offensively or defensively. Our stats at RL170 are 60 Vigor, 15 Mind, 30 Endurance, 14 Strength, 54 Dexterity, and 60 Faith. This is technically not optimized for attack rating, as switching a few points from Faith into Dexterity would get you a bit more weapon damage, but the 60 Faith allows us to use Mesmer's Orb. The Spear of the Impaler is a weapon I've been waiting to make a build video on for far too long now. The weapon lived up to my expectations and then some. I am very happy I included it on my recent binge of faith and dex scaling weapons.